Well, welcome to the July Historic District Board of Review meeting. We welcome you tonight, and hopefully it won't be too long a night like it was in June. We had a few more applications then. So to start us off, we'll do roll call. So Brooke, you want to start us?
Josh Wilbur,
Here?
Jerome Vernon, Thomas Stark,
Here.
Owen McCall,
Here.
Mike Pittman,
Here.
Sandy Palmer,
Here.
and Carol Ann Rogers.
Here.
All right, everyone should have received a copy of the minutes for last month. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move we approve the minutes from last month as submitted.
Second.
Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approve.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Mike Pittman,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
and Carol Ann Rogers.
Okay, that will get into the applications for this evening. Before we get there, I'll just take everybody through the process so you know what is going to happen, just in case you haven't been here before. We will call up usually using the address for the application. Someone representing the application will come up to the podium. You'll state your name and your address. So not if you don't live at that address, obviously whatever address you live at, you will state. Then at that point, yes.
We actually have the guideline update as the first item on the agenda before review of applications,
Oh,
if you don't mind, please.
okay. Well, I'll do that in a second after I go through the process. All right. After you come up and state your name and address, then Brooke will go over your application, and then we'll give you a chance to add anything to that. The board will then have a chance to ask any questions, and then we'll give the audience a chance to come up and address any concerns, questions, issues they might have, support. And then after we do that, then the board will go through what's called a findings of fact on the application, and then the board will take a vote on the application. If you get an approved vote, then you'll get your certificate of appropriateness to mail, and as long as you have your building permit and everything, you will be able to begin your project. Okay? So before we get to that, apparently I've missed this, the guidelines update. So
We have Phil Thomason from Thomason and Associates
Okay.
to give us an update.
Well, thank you all very much, and apologize for the mask, but we had this little incident week before last at the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions Forum in Cincinnati, and it was a great week. We had a lot of really good sessions, over 500 people were in attendance, and COVID sort of showed up too. So about 2/3 of our NAPC board came down with COVID, including myself, and there's a few others
Wow.
who also came down with COVID. You somehow escaped,
I escaped.
guess. All right, well. I sent a few weeks ago this summary of where we are after a couple of drafts, and have you all had a chance to look at it? Or if you'd like, I'd be happy to walk through it with you if you want the main points. So after the first two drafts, again, we have condensed the table of contents. I'm not going to say all of these, but just the major ones. Commercial and residential sections were merged together. We updated the information on routine maintenance items. The checklist of materials required for a COA was removed. Policy was changed to design objectives throughout. We added additional yes and no's to a number of the photographs throughout the document. We added a new section on metals to include cast iron, pressed metal. Awnings and canopies section was revised to include some additional language. The discussion on accessory dwelling units was removed because that's not in place as of yet. We removed the section on paint and paint colors. We did some updating to the language on storefronts and windows. The section on driveways, sidewalks, and parking lots were removed. Landscaping was removed. The section on archaeology was moved to the appendix, and some new language was added by the SHPO staff. And the COA application was taken out of the appendix. We got some new information from the SHPO on the tax credits, the language that they wanted used for the federal and state tax credits. And then we put in an overall historic district map to replace the long series of maps that were at the end. So we've received a number of other comments, and Brooke just gave me another summary of several pages of comments. So at this point, I think we're sort of in the home stretch here of making the final changes to the document, and we'll be sending that back here over the next couple of weeks. Have you all take a look at it one more time, and then once we're all okay with the final version, then it's going to go to the printer, and we'll be printing multiple copies for your use, and I'll be driving that box of documents probably back up here to deliver. So, you know, we hope to have all this finished here in the next couple of months. Just depends on any last odds and ends of the comments. But yeah, we are just at a point here we're about ready to wrap this up. So we'll be happy to answer any questions y'all might have. I'll be sticking around to the end of the meeting tonight. So if there's anything specific you'd like to talk to me about a particular element in the guidelines or specific photographs or anything like that, I'll be happy to stay for that. So.
All right.
Brooke, was this latest document, does Phil have a copy of that as well?
Yes, that is what I had given to Phil today. I had received that, I believe this morning. So,
Right.
Okay, looks like it's-
So anyway, I'll be here until after the meeting, and any discussion you want to have at that time is fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brooke, does the couple of months finishing this, does that make it into getting it to this council and hitting the guidelines and the dates that were originally set to get that?
All right, we'll move into applications. So our first application we have is the Riverfront Development Commission at 120 East Vaughan Drive.
Didn't make it again. Oh, there they are.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Joshua Kinsey. I'm with Building Analysis Services, here representing with John Bruns, the Riverfront Development Committee. It was more to relay what we have gone over.
You can just, hold it, stop right there. Just, what's your address? So
It's the 102 or 120 Vaughan Drive.
that's your address?
It's where the project's.
Right, what's your address? We got to have it for our records, that's why.
2347 South Bluff Run, Hanover, Indiana.
Okay. And are you speaking, Mr. Bruns? Okay.
John Bruns, I'm also on the committee. My address is 930 Industrial Drive.
All right, thank you. All right, Brooke, we'll have Brooke talk about the application first and then.
so this application is in a space currently occupied by a small deck overlook. It is zoned open space. The request is to build a new viewing platform. Community kind of knows this as the super overlook on the side of the existing viewing platform, and to demolish the existing platform. So you can see the current picture of what it looks like here. This is the design for the new overlook. And I'll go through some plans so you can see the different aspects. This one is a general site plan just showing where it's going to be in relation to the boat ramp and different things. But that is all I have, so I will go back to the, if it would be easier for you, I will go back to that image.
Okay. All right, now, if you do want to add anything to that?
No, we just wanted to come down, and we've actually spoke about this before in the past. This is the updated version of that. So we wanted to come down and let you guys see what we were doing and be able to get comments and feedback with you.
Wasn't there at one point an enclosure that was going to be on top? It was going to be enclosed at one point, was that?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's gone now?
That is correct.
Right, okay. Any questions by the board?
Can you remind me of the overall width of the entire structure and I guess the terrace
this metal that's around here is gonna match what's there existing. The railing itself will match what's here existing. We have not determined what we're going to do here on the arch. We've talked about a few different things, but that's still on our end. What it's gonna look like here.
Thank you.
What's the seating gonna be? Is it gonna be just,
It's a, I'm not from, are you familiar with what Ready Rock is? It's a pre-manufactured stone. It looks like landscaping stone. It's just much larger in circumference. And, it's a stackable stone that you can put in place on each level. It's big enough to withstand the elements that it's having to deal with down there, and to stay in place. So it's a massive concrete manufactured stone. Is what it is.
so you can take all those logs and good stuff that's floating down the,
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's similar material, if you're familiar with Rising Sun. It's similar material to what they've used up there.
okay.
Any other questions, comments?
What's the anticipated length once you get started on this? To get her what's the time frame you're looking at to start and finish?
In a perfect world, it'll be done by June of next year. There's all kinds of, as you know, parameters that will inhibit that sometimes.
Oh, we got a steel factory right down the river, or right up the river, so
They are heavily involved in this.
wonderful, wonderful.
Other questions? Any questions, comments from the audience? Would state your name and address too, please.
Charles Ricketts, 707 West First Street. I attend these meetings, and I don't intend to talk when things come up, so I think it's a great idea. I like the looks of it, and I think it'd be a big improvement for the riverfront. My only question to the group is the tree board been involved in this, and how does that impact the trees? I know some residents are concerned about that, so you might want to address it just so they know.
Yeah, sure.
So I personally was involved in a lot of meetings with the tree board. We tried to skin this cat every way we could to save those trees. And whether you build tree wells around them, lower the grade because of the massive drip line of those trees, if you understand drip lines on trees. So outer limits of the leaves to the other outer limits to the leaves is where the root zone is. These trees just will not survive the construction process. We intend to go back, and let me say too, those two trees are what you and I would call water maples, and probably 10, 15 feet above ground. There's multiple forks and they're splitting. So the life expectancy of those is more short-term than long-term. What we're doing in place is putting two 6-inch caliper trees, which will be about 25 feet to begin with when we plant them. I personally intend to tag these over at Schneider's Nursery in Seymour, if anyone's familiar with the quality of plant material that they provide. So we feel like it's a step in the right direction, even though it kind of feels like we're backpedaling a little bit.
So the tree board's on board with it?
Yes.
No pun intended.
Yes.
Okay.
So John, we're talking about 2 trees removal, and then we're gonna put in 2 new trees.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
just
do you know
two.
what the new trees will be?
Yeah.
Probably a maple species, but more of a new and improved variety.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? All right, I guess we go to findings of fact. And Tom, you want to take us through?
Sure. So this really isn't a deck, but it is new construction. I mean, I guess you could consider it a deck. And there are modern features, if added to historic buildings, which this is not, they should be constructed on the building's rear elevation. This is constructed in open space and not attached to a historic structure, so I feel that it does meet the guidelines on that point. It is going to be constructed of stone and steel, and I guess will be painted. We don't know the color, but at some point it will be painted or protected. So that covers 2 and 3. And from a design perspective, I mean, I think it's very clean, and I think it's simple. I think it will hold up, hopefully, to the river rising and falling, and those terraces. I'm guessing those stones have to be really heavy. With that said, though, I feel that this project is in conformance with our guidelines.
Sandy? Do you agree?
Well, I don't really see that we have I don't see that we have any guidelines that apply to this, so if you want to say they're in conformance, okay.
right.
But I was looking more at guidelines as far as the relationship, the size, which seems to be not conducive, related to the other structures that are there or not there, but.
Okay. Owen?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Sandy. I don't think the people that wrote the guidelines had anything like this in their wildest imaginations that we would be asked to bless or condemn this. So, I mean, this is a one-off thing. It's not really, I don't think the guidelines really even address it. So I'm perfectly fine to vote in favor of this.
Yeah. Mike?
I'm also in favor of it. I appreciate the efforts, John, you and your team have made to get out to the public and talk it up, and you've been to, I think, some city council meetings as well as other meetings to show what you're planning on doing, and revised it, what your plan was based on what you want to do. So I agree with Tom that we really don't have a findings of fact for a viewing stand on the Ohio River, but you guys did a nice job on putting this together. Appreciate it.
Caroline?
I agree with the findings of fact, except that I can also see where you may have had regatta in mind in building this, but I can see it might have a multi-purpose. There's other things we can use it for, and I think that could be to our advantage as well, so I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, that's kind of the intent, it's a multi-purpose. The regatta was definitely coordinated with, but the intention is for all year use, not just once a year.
Yeah, and I agree for all the reasons stated. I think everybody, I mean, this is something the guidelines don't tend to, we're usually on historic structures and new infill, and this could be, partly new infill as well in that community, but certainly dresses up the riverfront even more. The Riverfront Development Commission has done a lot with everything down there. This is just yet another great feature that I think tourists are going to love as well as residents. So, okay, with that, we'll move to a motion.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Riverfront Development Commission for the proposed application to build a new viewing platform, Super Outlook, on the site of the existing view platform that will be demolished. This project will be built to specifications submitted to the Historic District Board of Review, and the project is located at 120 plus Vaughan Drive.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Brooke?
Caroline Rogers,
Approved.
Sandy Palmer,
Approved.
Mike Rittman,
Approve.
Owen Schultz,
Approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approved.
and Josh Lewis.
Approve. All right, you got your COA for it now, so on to the next thing. Thank you, guys. All right, our second application is 222 West 2nd Street. I think I saw Mr. Watkins in the audience here.
Good afternoon. Kevin Watkins, homeowner at 222 West 2nd.
All right, thank you. Brooke?
This is a circa 1890 gable front. It is a contributing structure zoned Historic District Residential. COA request is to replace wood windows with aluminum-clad wood windows of the same shape, size, and design. These pictures on the left show the windows that were there prior to replacement, and the right shows the new windows. And these are some photos of the old windows after they were removed. And then this is a close-up of the new windows. And that is all I have.
I'd like to mention that in my original application for the construction process, aluminum-clad wood windows were approved by this board for the rest of the house. It was specifically HMI's request, as they were the seller of the house to me, that we try to conserve any windows that we could in the home. That was certainly our intention, and I indicated that at the first meeting, that if we could salvage wood windows in a practical manner, that certainly it would be our preference. However, if we were unable to salvage those windows or they were cost prohibitive, that we would have to go with the aluminum-clad wood window previously approved by HDBR. So subsequently, as we started to get ready, the windows showed up on my property. John Stasier across the road in his office has a bird's eye view of the construction process going on. And so he called me and said, hey, I thought we were going to try to conserve those windows. And I said, yeah, we were going to try to conserve those windows. But the situation as it exists is the house is very unique in that it was not constructed on site. It was constructed in the factory and delivered on site for assembly. These wood window frames were constructed in the factory, and as such, it's not traditional frame wall construction in any way, shape, or form. The sashes were hung in the factory and delivered that way, and to take them out was monumentally more difficult than a standard construction project. Secondary to that was the fact that there was, in fact, a good bit of deterioration and destruction of the window framing around them, specifically the boards around the bottom. Replacing them would not be an easy factor. Again, these were factory constructed sections in this house, and replacing them is not a simple matter of taking out the bad wood and putting in the good wood. These are solid state units, basically, if you will. So in the process of taking them out, several of the sashes were damaged. The base of the windows, forgive me, I don't know all the correct construction terms, but were damaged in getting them out. The weights and ropes that were in the walls were inaccessible and would not be able to be utilized again. Effectively, we were going to have to replace the damaged windows, the damage from the taking them out and trying to rehab them, with effectively new windows. So I was either going to replace them with new wood windows, which would be fine, but that's not conserving the original. And since the aluminum-clad wood windows are currently approved by the HDBR and were previously approved by this board at my initial hearing, I made a decision, and I apologize to John all over myself because I just didn't consult him. They asked that I would consult them on each change as we went along, and there weren't that many changes from what we did, but this was one. And I quite honestly, as any of you know, going through a construction process, windows have to be ordered when they have to be ordered, or you'll never see them. I still have windows that may not be here till October or November. So I made a decision at that time to go ahead and order the new windows. When the new windows showed up on location, John queried me. We talked both by text and then subsequently in person, and went through and toured and looked through, and I showed and explained to him the difficulties, while the walls were still open there, the difficulties in doing conservation of those windows. John understood and agreed, and I think he's as purist as any of us in terms of trying to maintain historical integrity in structures like this. And so he agreed, went back to his board and their board attorney, and said, well, basically, you know, you didn't consult with us on this one change order, and so we're going to reprimand you, we're going to fuss at you. He said, but had you come to us at that time and explained this to us, I certainly feel like we would have agreed, and so they have subsequently sent me a letter approving the changes that I needed to make. I feel like this meeting, and we talked a number of occasions, maybe we ought to just take this back before the board, make sure that we're approved and on the up and up, I suppose. And so I'm seeking final approval on what was ostensibly a conditional approval on the first meeting.
Was it for these specific windows, or you said we had approved aluminum clad for other windows,
Yeah.
but it wasn't for these that you
We had approved
redone?
aluminum clad for
Right.
the new construction sections of the house.
Right.
And we had approved aluminum clad for the sides of the house.
Yeah.
They wanted the facade of the house if we could
Okay,
maintain
right.
them to please do
So
that.
we hadn't approved it for the front at this point.
I
That's,
suppose
that's,
that is the
that's
case.
why, yeah, okay.
So,
Now, I'm gonna ask the question that I think other board members are probably asking in their heads. Why are the new windows already in?
because by the time John called me, they had been delivered and were in place. And then before they closed them up and everything, I took John and walked through them. We talked through it. He said, yeah, I think this will be fine. In the interim, Brooke and I were talking on a regular basis. She thought maybe that might have been a staff approval since it was kind of conditionally approved previously, and subsequently decided maybe that wasn't the best idea. Let's just be out front about it. The windows were installed after John approved. I guess I correctly or incorrectly assumed that you all would follow suit on that and take his recommendation on that. But so we went ahead and finished them in. Yeah,
Okay.
they're there. Mea culpa.
Questions from the board?
How many windows are we talking about, Kevin?
This 1, 2 here, a double window on the second floor and a single window on the second floor. 5 windows total, I suppose.
Okay, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Personally, I kind of think that these windows, by the way, are aesthetically more pleasing than the raggedy old ones with aluminum storm windows on them. And obviously, the R factor and sustainability of these windows will be far beyond what a wood window would be in maintenance. So I think that they lend to the appeal of the house. They're aesthetically very pleasing. There will be no other storm windows on the outside, so I think that also lends to the aesthetic of the home.
Go ahead, Owen.
Well, I mean, this seems to happen a lot. You know, people show up asking more for forgiveness than for approval. And at some point, I don't know whether it's tonight or some other night, we're going to have to start telling people, tear it out and put the other back. Because, you know, we did not approve these windows. You know, just because they were similar windows were approved for new construction and a whole new part of the house doesn't imply at all that this was okay to do, in my mind. And, you know, looking at the pictures that Brooke had taken of the sashes, they certainly didn't look 80% deteriorated, which is what the guidelines technically specify. If they're less than 80.
Were not technically, they were not deteriorated to that point. You are correct.
Right.
The framing around the windows were, and they were, I mean, inaccessible without getting new panels made. I mean, there were structural integral members of lumber built into the panels that made it. I mean, my contractor was just like, Kevin, I don't even know how we get these out, how we reframe this. I don't even know how. And at the very least, I mean, this is going to cost a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort. It was not my intention. I thought when we approved the aluminum clad wood windows, and those are, de facto something that's regularly approved by the historic board for facades, sides, reconstruction, new construction, downtown. I thought I was living within the guidelines. It was not my intention to do this in opposition to what you're doing. I wasn't trying to sneak anything in the back door. I was simply going on what I thought was the approval. And then when I called Brooke, I said, well, these were approved, right? And she was like, well, maybe not technically. I mean, they did, but, and when I read the approval, it didn't make mention of them, but we did discuss them on that day. And the aluminum clad wood windows, everybody was like, oh yeah, we think those would be fine. I assumed, and again, mea culpa if I assumed incorrectly, but I assumed that these were approved on all the facades. The only issue I had in my mind at all was HMI's concerns about changing them. They were the only ones that ever said to me, boy, we'd really like you to save those windows if possible. That was not really discussed that evening.
Well, that's what the guidelines say. I mean, that's in here, so we're out on board with
I
HMI.
understand, but those windows have also been approved for frontage on lots of houses in downtown. Your consideration for this home, because it was from HMI, should be no different than any other home that you would consider. And
Right.
for
It's
facade windows, those are approved windows on a regular basis. I made an assumption. and
Right,
I-
no, it's an improved material, but that doesn't imply, and you've never seen where we just say, you have really good shape historic windows, but go ahead and tear them out and put in, anything new. No.
But they weren't good shape
All
windows.
I think people should look at these historic windows more like a chimney. Chimneys need tuck pointing occasionally, but they're really permanent parts of the house. And the wood that those windows were made out of, it doesn't exist anymore. It's really rot resistant. And if you were to restore those windows and then put a modern storm, almost invisible storm over the outside, you might every 20 years or 30 years ago have to go in and do a little more restoration, but they'll essentially last forever. These new windows, which I'm sure are quite expensive, are actually expendable. They're not like those. Every 20 years, they're going to have to be replaced. They have all kinds of mechanical stuff inside that will break. They're either hard or impossible. It's like you're saying, your factory-made ones. These new windows will break, and a lot of them are not. You can't even repair them. You got to replace the whole dadgum thing. So it makes economic sense even usually to preserve the older windows, as well as, of course, historical preservation sense.
I 100% agree with everything you said. I don't disagree at all. It was my hope and intention to do that. It was, in fact, cost prohibitive and, in fact, technically inhibitive to do that, because they were integrated, the framing around the outside is integrated into the panel sections that the house was delivered. And it just made it technically, at the very least, difficult, if not impossible. Totally my preference. I would love to keep the wood windows. I hold great respect for the construction of the era and maintaining the integrity of the community at large and my home individually, and have gone to great lengths and expense to make sure those things are done on as many levels as possible. I don't have any excuse. Those were the situations at hand. So,
Any other questions, comments?
No, I'd like to make a comment. I think the one thing that anyone who rehabs an old home finds, there are good surprises and there's bad surprises. And unfortunately, Kevin, you found one of the bad surprises on a manufactured home. I agree that the old wood is great wood, but we have this thing called dry rot, we have this thing called moisture rot, we have this thing called termites in this town.
a thing called time.
And they do tremendous damage to any wood structure. And unfortunately, you can take the best wood in the world today and it can be gone. And I keep hearing termites don't eat poplar. I beg to differ. They eat everything. So, I appreciate
of interest. I have
efforts.
saved those wood windows and the sashes that were good, and they would be readily available to anybody that could possibly use them. I'd be
Well, I appreciate
happy
what
to see
you're
them
doing to that
used.
house. I think it's gonna be a show place when you get it done.
And I'll just add, for me, it's process. I understand what everything you said, and the house is looking great, the windows look great, but we did not approve those front four.
Five.
And if you had come back, or five, yeah, thank you for
That's right.
correcting me. If you just come back to ask for approval before installing it, because as Owen said, what happens is we get this every month. People do it, and then they come in and ask for approval after it's done. So, for me, it's the process.
Agree. My oversight, and, right, you're right.
Any questions, concerns from the audience? Yes, sir.
Ken McWilliams, Poplar Street. And so we're doing the same house, just one house over. And our intent was to deliver the sashes to Architectural Supply in Louisville as a donation. No one wants to pay for them. And as soon as we took the windows out, the sashes collapsed instantly. There was just nothing holding them together.
I'm glad he's digging into his house now too, because it is a difficult process on these houses. They're interesting. They're not traditional construction.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. They are traditional on some level, but they're not what our contractors are used to digging into at all, and they create some challenges.
All right, well, Sandy, would you like to go through findings of fact on this, please?
I'd love to.
I knew it.
Well, I guess we've just been talking, the original one should be preserved, so we're not, conformance there. Number two, you're in conformance, there was no added to the primary facade. I mean, there were 5 windows and you now have 5 new windows. And again, they should be repaired rather than replaced. So. Number 4 doesn't apply, number 5 doesn't apply, neither does 6, and neither does 7, so.
Can we back up one screen there just for a moment? I apologize if I'm out of order doing that, but severe deterioration, I don't know if we qualify as severe deterioration. I believe that it was, but the impossibility of digging into them, I don't think that's considered. But it says if they should be replaced, they should be replaced with anodized aluminum windows, so.
Owen.
Well, I agree with Sandy.
Okay. Mike?
I agree with Sandy, but I'd also put a proviso that he used anodized aluminum windows. Plus, I think Kevin went above and beyond by talking to HMI and getting them involved. Unfortunately, the front facade is a major issue for us as far as the houses go. But I agree. I agree with the fact that, yeah, strictly on the findings of fact, you missed a few findings of fact, but you also are saving a beautiful house, and it's going to be beautiful when you get it done. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Carol Ann?
I'm recusing myself.
Okay. Tom?
I agree for the same reasons, other than the process, which I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and I actually agree with what Tom just said. I think the process is the big kick. I also think it's really difficult to determine whether a window is 80% deteriorated or it's not. It's hard for us because we're not there looking at it. We can see pictures, but that's not, doesn't always do it justice for me. So that's always a very difficult thing. Deterioration, we a lot of times leave it on the contractor or resident to tell us kind of what it is, and then we try to take from that. So, in this case, for this house, for this particular project, I think it's more just the process that you did it prior to coming. So that's really it for me. All right, so I accept a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the application for Kevin Watkins at 222 West Second Street, where he's already replaced the wood windows with the aluminum-clad wood windows on the front facade. While he doesn't meet all of the findings of fact, I think he did it with the best of intentions. And I think the house is going to be a definite plus for Second Street, as if they need more pluses, but it's a good-looking street.
All right, do we have a second? I'll second the motion. Brooke?
Thomas Stark,
I'm gonna have to deny it. I do not approve, simply because of process. If process had been followed, then I think, with everything you said, we'd be right on track.
Owen McCall,
Do not approve.
Sandy Palmer,
I do not approve, and it has nothing to do with the way it looks now or the effort that you've taken, but I don't approve on process.
Mike Pittman,
Approve.
and Josh Wilbur.
Approve. So with the fact that we didn't get more than four, we get four votes to not approve, that means it is approved. And you will get your certificate of appropriateness in the mail.
Well, that's backing into the parking space, I suppose. I appreciate and respect this board a great deal. I share your aesthetics and concerns for our historic community, and I want to maintain that best I can. I do understand your concerns, Tom, and all these concerns, completely accurate. And again, it was not my intention to subvert the process at all. It was my misunderstanding, my mistake. So I appreciate your concerns and take them to heart. I appreciate it.
Understand? Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, our next application is 513 West Main Street. Hello.
I'm Raymond Godward. Please call me Joe.
Okay.
11903 West State Road 250 in Deputy.
All right.
Current residence.
Okay. Hold on just a second there. We'll let Brooke go over the application, then give you a chance.
This structure is a circa 1870 gabled L/Italianate, zoned historic district residential. COA request is to remove the side door and steps and install one window in place in the sunroom. This is the sunroom. You can see, obviously, it's a more modern addition to the home. It would not be the original historic construction. So you can see with some of the notes, he's wanting to remove the porch, the railing, and where that louvered glass door is, to infill that with brick at the bottom and a window at the top. And these are just some more pictures of the sunroom and the porch that is to be removed. And here. And that is all I have.
Can you explain a little bit more what you're going to do there? Because that's where I
Okay.
just didn't understand it.
That is the back side.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, the floor in that we are going to raise, which will require raising the door in that area. So that stoop and, all the cracked up concrete and everything is gonna come out. The door raised, the floor raised, the stoop re-poured. The other door around on the other side, it was basically when the house was subdivided up into apartments years and years
Okay.
ago. it was a separate entrance.
That makes
And
sense.
that,
That's-
there's
that's-
no reason to have that
Yeah.
at this time. And it impedes the sidewalk and
Okay.
everything else. So that's,
I love this house. I think it's a beautiful home, and I go by it a lot on Main Street, but it's a beautiful, beautiful home. And this part, when I was looking at it, I thought, man, why is he doing this? Some of this doesn't make sense to me, but that helps me out a lot. I didn't realize that it had been subdivided.
yeah, and this
That
whole
stinks.
sunroom addition, I mean, I think originally it was just a porch. I think then they made it a smaller addition, and then they enlarged it one more time. And again, I mean, the original ledger board that they put up is in underneath the eaves. It's a little suspect. I mean, we're talking about putting a whole new roof on the thing, standing seam.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it'll be an improvement all the way around.
Is that just tar? Is that a tarred roof right now, or is that standing seam?
It's
there?
shingles,
It's shingles. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's got two different slopes on it.
Okay. Yeah. It's off. It's
A little
awkward.
interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I had said in the original application is, okay, fill in the brick such as it is now, and that's easy because it's a painted brick now, so we'd be painting, it should match up pretty good. I was looking for a jalousie window that would sort of replicate the door that's there now. From what I'm finding, the only place that in the world that those are used at all is in Hawaii these days. And trying to find one is just, you
Yeah.
can't do it in that, so. If anything, probably just filling that in with clapboard siding, sort of to match what would be on the back side above the door there.
And what material are you using for the window that you're going to put in
Well, okay,
there? Yeah.
the windows that are there now are old anodized aluminum, I'm gonna say from probably
Okay.
the 50s or something.
Yeah.
And that, so basically, I guess I'm saying at this point, filling it in with brick, and then above the brick, just putting clapboard siding.
Oh, okay. So no window there.
No
Okay.
window there.
Ah, okay.
So why wouldn't you go ahead and fill the entire space with brick?
We could, I guess I was just sort of continuing the ledge that's,
So between, okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, now
Yeah.
between the windows is clapboard, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Again, if anybody knows where, anybody that's making jalousie windows these days.
Would love to
let
have
me
one of those.
know.
So you're not adding a window then in this project at this point?
Now, like I say, I'd like to.
You'd like to, but you
and
can't find
I
the-
think if we could find the right thing,
Yeah.
we could maintain the look.
Yeah.
But
You can't. Yeah.
I've looked high and low, and I'm not finding
Okay.
that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Now, when you say standing seam, I just want to
I
caution you.
I don't think he's doing the roof on
We're
this
not
project.
doing the roof
No.
on
No,
this
no.
Oh,
application.
you are?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's got a-
Want
Oh,
to
okay.
do
Yeah.
a new ledger
Sorry.
board and rafters down, and, yeah, then a standing seam.
Okay, so this standing seam roof, that means no external fasteners, right? This is going to be just crimped metal.
Right.
Okay, because those are way more expensive than what a lot of people pick.
I've got 3,000 square foot out in the country with standing
Okay,
seam.
all right, just want to make sure.
I'm well aware of that.
Okay.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I was thinking there was.
And again, that section just has K-form gutters, and, you know, it's pretty easy on some of those regards.
Brooke, just to make sure, there's no public alleyway or walkway behind their house, is there?
Yes, there
Behind
is.
the garage, there is a public alley.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that's why it's
Okay.
before.
Okay.
I still don't know if you can see that roof, though.
Yeah.
And then this side is facing the alleyway
Okay.
going down.
That's, so you can
Mid-
see this from the
mid-block.
alley, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions for the board? Questions, comments from the audience? All right, Owen, you want to take us through findings of fact?
Okay. Well, first I want to point out this, okay, they're talking about historic doors here in our doors and entrances section. But we should keep in mind through this that this is not a historic part of this building. This was a modern addition. And so it seems to me that what Mr. Godward is doing is he is just updating and improving, the materials, the roof is going to be better. He's just upgrading a modern addition that is there. So I don't really feel like we should have to read these guidelines, chapter and verse for a project like this, and just like we wouldn't if this was a completely non-contributing structure. It's very much a contributing structure. It's beautiful, but this one section of it shouldn't be held to the same tight standards as we would on the rest of the building. Okay, so just to go through them, the first one, historic porches, it's not a historic porch. Yeah,
Sorry,
historic
can you go back
doors,
to
not
the
a historic doors, a jalousie. I lived on Galveston Island, and my apartment had a jalousie door in it. It was, even at that latitude, it was a terrible mistake. So I think you should get rid of that jalousie door, yeah. Historic doors, they keep talking about, we're not dealing with that at all. Historic, it's not any of this. So this to me seems like just an upgrade to a non-contributing structure, because this is a non-contributing substructure, I guess we would call it. So in my view, this completely conforms to the guidelines.
Mike?
I agree for the same reasons.
Carol Ann?
Absolutely, I agree.
Tom?
Agree for the same reasons?
Sandy?
I agree, because it isn't, and it also, if, in the ordinance, it is, the relationship is proportional to the rest of the house, and this is not historic, so I agree.
I too agree for the same reasons. So with that, I'll accept the motion.
Based on the, you want to go ahead and do it? I just thought since you went through that long spiel, I would
I'm just
alleviate.
sort of the habit of whenever I'm doing it, I just go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right, so, okay, based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Joe and Donna Godward for the proposed modifications and upgrades to their side porch at 513 West Main Street.
Do we have a second?
I would say,
Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Approve.
Thomas Stark,
Approve?
Owen McCollum,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
approved.
Carol Ann Rogers,
Approved.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
All right, Joe and Donna, we'll get a certificate of appropriateness in the mail. You can begin construction as soon as you have the proper building permits if you need those.
Okay, speaking of which,
Yeah.
since I don't know, okay, once I get the certificate of appropriateness, then I go to,
Well, you can go ahead now, even though you don't have it right now, you will get approval. So you don't have to wait to get the COA to begin your project.
okay,
You've already got the approval from the board with this meeting. So you can talk to the building inspector and just make sure if any building permits you might need to do this. And if there are some, then secure those before you begin your project. Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Of course, I'm losing one. All right, our next application is 214 East 3rd Street. And it doesn't look like we have anybody to represent 214 East 3rd Street, so we'll move it to the end and we'll wait till then. All right, so we'll go to 620 West Street.
Hello.
Hi.
Pamela Brown, 620 West Street.
All right, thank you, Pam.
This is a circa 1840 federal home, zoned Central Business District. The COA request is to build a new front porch, build a two-story rear addition to the house with a two-story attached porch. You can see the existing front facade of the home here. These would be drawings of the proposed additions. Or elevations. Basic floor plan with additions. Same here, just a different view. Another view of the elevations. The floor plan. And the site plan. That is all I have. I will go back to the picture of the elevations if that's the best one.
That'd be fine, thank you. Pam, Pamela, do you have anything to add?
Not really.
Okay, speaks for itself, huh? All right. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I didn't see a picture or rendering to give us an idea what you're talking about, a front porch. Because that house of that era was not did not have front porches.
Or can you go back to that, I think it was the first slide?
That's on top right there.
Right there?
Oh, on the top
Just,
right?
uh,
Oh,
The shed slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really similar.
I didn't have that picture. Oh.
I kind of wanted that to help preserve that front door. Not really sure how to handle the setback on the front door. So I thought that would keep the sun on and just make it look nicer. And protect the windows. We already did.
Is it gonna be a flat roof to that? Yeah, I couldn't remember the, okay,
Kind of.
that other one didn't show that, so that's why.
So the top right is
Top right there.
the front porch?
Yep.
Okay.
When I drove past that building and looked at it this morning, it looks like, even though it's just 30 feet from the center of the road, actually from the sidewalk closest to you, it's about 10 feet back to the house. And that particular house was not, they didn't have porches on them at the time. And I think that would be overwhelming to bring it out 8 feet and just have, well, I think it would be inappropriate to put a porch on that house.
I lived in a really similar house at 619 Broadway Street that has a porch just like that was original to the structure. That's what kind of gave me the idea because it was so nice to have that space and have the door protected and the transom protected.
Well, I can see you having the small roof, or what were we calling it, an eyebrow?
Transom, yeah.
Transom, over the door, just for protection from rain or something like that. But I'm not sure that that house ever had a porch.
I don't think it did.
Any other questions, comments of the board?
Windows, what,
I
Or-
redid the windows, the wood windows, in like 2014. And they're all old glass, old windows. They're beautiful and low profile storms. So the front's windows are stay the same. In the construction, there might be some need for more windows in the back facades. We used historic replacement 6/6. They were mimicking the front that were aluminum. So we used something like that, I
so
believe.
you're using, if I hear you correctly, aluminum clad wood windows in the new construction? Siding, LP, Smart?
That's a yes. Pam,
The
we
hard
can't
work
really
and
take
stuff.
Brian's because he's in the back and the camera and stuff can't pick him up. So,
Yeah, I saw on your application you had a mark, also for awnings. Is that,
No,
okay, you're not adding awnings then?
no.
Okay.
Pam, you said on there some windows will be moved. What windows are you gonna move?
Well, in the back, there's a kitchen window that would be under where the porch is going, so it might be moved out to the addition or, but, yeah. 'Cause it
so
would-
basically it's being covered up. If,
Yeah,
if not,
it's
so you're just gonna be taking it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Link, I see Link Leddington in the audience. So I'd like to take this opportunity. Link, could you give us your feelings on this about adding a front porch to this structure? Is that,
I was even aware that, there was talk about altering the front,
yeah. Yeah, my question just has to do with the front. See, there's the, I don't know if you're familiar with this house, but there's the current photograph of what it looks like now.
No, I'm familiar with the house, I just didn't come prepared to comment on this application.
Uh-huh. You'd rather not? Okay.
I mean, I think the guidelines deal with the question, adding on the features that were not part of the historic design, I just say apply the guidelines.
Okay, thanks.
I think if you look at the other homes on the block, you got, I believe, two brick structures right next to you. Actually, Fifth Street coming back, two brick structures that are right on the sidewalk, so.
Yeah,
they've
all the
got-
way up.
Yeah, they've got no front porch, and then you've got the burnout that's being rehabbed next door. So, hopefully they'll have put a porch on that thing, but, we'll see what happens with that. And, then I think you get, is KDH, the ambulance service is up next to that, so. So it's a mixed block is what I'm getting to. You've got some porches, you got some without porches, and you've got some right on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So. And then, of course, you got KDH, in KDH building now, right across the street from you, so.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Any questions, comments from the audience? Come on up.
Brian Martin, 104 Shearing Street. These aren't my drawings or design, but I'm working with Pam on the project. I understand specifically with the guidelines in relation to adding the porch. I also think over the years, watching things happen and adjustments to these structures, the one thing we need to keep into account is we're asking a lot of people to invest in these properties, and I mean she's saving the main architectural component of the house itself, the facade. I mean the porch is basically just something that's applied to the front. It's not ruining the structure by any means. It does provide the level of comfort that someone wants at their home. I mean everyone loves the front porch, so I think that's a consideration in relation to, it's not like something has been torn down or removed. It's something that's basically just being applied to the front. Again, I get specific to the guidelines, but I don't think, like they've said over the years, I mean, if someone wants to come back through and tear it off, it doesn't ruin the house. It just, goes away basically. So it's just, it's more of a comment in relation to, asking people to invest in these properties and the amount of money they invest in and live downtown and protect, the main structure. That's one element that provides a little bit of comfort and, environment, I guess, to the home. So, for what it's worth.
Thank you. All right, so with that, Mike, you want to take us through findings of fact, please?
Can I ask one more question first?
Yes.
The porch, is that gonna be asphalt shingle, metal shingle, what are you gonna use for the roof?
I'm not sure. Just match whatever's on the house, just to be as consistent as possible.
Asphalt shingle then?
Columns, same thing, again, it's understanding it's not it's not an original structure, we're not trying to replicate an original. I think it would just be as simple and clean as possible, probably like a square column, just, nondescript, as clean as we could. In keeping with the architecture of the house to agree. Again, I think if you look at that front facade, there's not a lot of decoration of sorts, it's just clean and simple, and I think we keep that concept.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Findings of fact. Says additions to the home should be located in the rear, which the big addition is that we've been discussing a lot about the porch, but I also think what you're talking about, Pam, is a porch facing west, which you probably need. And you're talking about asphalt shingles on it, so I think that'll help out. And also, I believe that if one looks around Madison, you can see several additional porches that are now considered historic that were added probably in the late 1800s to a lot of the earlier homes. But anyway, I digress. Additions should be secondary, smaller, and simpler. I'm not sure this one would classify as smaller. I think it's going to be a little bit larger the way it looks. But it will be at the rear, which is important. Additions should be compatible in design, which is in the same design as the original, roof shape, materials, color. There was the half addition that's on the back, it's a single story if I'm not mistaken now. That's going away, I assume?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna take that out. The buildings, materials, I don't know how color got in there. Who snuck color in there? And location of window and door and entrance and cornice heights. Are you gonna put a cornice around it, or
I'm not sure.
where'd it go? See hiding back there? You gonna put a cornice around it?
Well, what does, you can't go back to Peter's drawings, how these are represented?
I don't think so.
Got a little overhang, perhaps? It doesn't look like it.
Didn't look like it. Looked really simple.
Consistent with what's there as possible.
Okay,
Consistent with what's existing.
on the front two-story, okay. So that'll be consistent, all righty. All right, additions should not imitate an earlier historic style, which I don't think this does. The recommended approach is for additions to reflect characteristics of current period and design, which I think your porch will. It doesn't seem like you're gonna be making it into an old-fashioned porch. And to avoid extensive damage or removal of historic materials. Do you know if that first-story addition was added to that home, or was it original to the home?
It wasn't original. I think there were 2 additions over time. I've seen really old photos of the house, so.
Okay. So I think she covers all the findings of fact.
So
So,
I think-
go
I think-
one more
I think-
page.
Yeah, I think porches.
There we go.
Oh, porches visible
Yeah.
from the street should be retained. Well, that's not a problem here, we're adding one. You're not gonna enclose it. Screening may be appropriate if needed. Wood framing is preferred. Your column should be wood. Aluminum framing is acceptable. Raw aluminum framing is not. Okay. Historic porch is missing, which is not a situation here. I don't think that one ever had a porch, so. Porch details, that number 4 doesn't apply. Number 5 doesn't apply. Number 6, I don't think you're gonna need wood steps. If I remember right, it sits pretty close to the ground. And a wood trellis is appropriate. So, I could recommend a good vine too for you to grow up that. So if you wanna put a lattice on there. Okay,
I think that's it. And then Brooke?
and I think overall she does meet the findings of fact.
Okay. Carol Ann?
The only problem I have is with the porch on the front. I don't agree with that, but I do agree with the addition in the back. I think it's gonna be, it's gonna double the size of her house, and there's plenty of room back there. It backs up almost to a little alley, where there's some great little houses that have just been constructed. But I can't go with the porch.
Okay. Tom?
For the most part, I agree with Mike. I also agree with Carol Ann that the federal style house could not have a porch. I think that I would rethink that. We have a lot of them that have developed like in the 70s, 1880s, 1890s, but many of them have been removed over time too, to go back to their original
Sandy?
I agree with the finding of facts and also with the fact that it doesn't, it was not historic. But it also will not destroy the historic materials that are already there if it's on or if it's off, so.
Okay. So I guess to understand what you're agreeing with Mike on that it
Mike and
does.
his-
Okay.
Right. And then Carol Ann, as far as the
The front porch should not be
should
put
not
on.
be, I mean, it
Okay.
was not a historic evidence that there was a porch there.
Okay, now I
But I'm
understand.
just
Sorry,
saying-
I just didn't,
Yeah,
want to make sure I
yeah.
understood it.
I want it both ways,
Sorry.
but yeah.
Owen?
I agree with Mike's first take on this. I guess on the porch, to me, the guidelines do not say specifically you should not add a porch. It talks about preserving ones that are there and what you can and can't do to historic porches, but it doesn't say don't add a new porch to the front of a historic structure. So I don't see how this is in violation of the guidelines doing that. So to me, it seems consistent with the guidelines.
Yeah, and I would add to what Owen said is that it says the porch should be consistent with the home that would be added to, so, on the findings of fact. So I agree, it doesn't say you can't add one, which I looked for that on this one, because I thought, I knew the federal thing would come up, and I thought, well, but, I think there's a good point that was made by, the builder, obviously, and the contractor, that, it's not going to take away from the actual historic structure that is going to be attached to, and somebody can take it off and not destroy it. So I think that's important. Okay, so with that, we'll accept a motion. Go ahead, Sandy.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Pam Brown for the proposed front porch, back addition, including upstairs room and porches off the first and second floor at 620 West Street.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Brooke?
Carolyn Rogers?
I agree with the addition, but I cannot agree to the porch.
So you'd have to.
I'd have to deny it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike Pittman?
Approve.
Owen McCall?
Approve.
Sandy Palmer?
Approve.
Josh Wilbur?
Approve.
And Thomas Stark?
Approve.
So you will get your certificate of appropriateness in the mail, and you can begin work as long as you have all the proper building permits as well. Thank you, Pamela. All right, our next application is 1016 West First Street. Is that you? All right, come on up. It's like the Price is Right. Come on up. Everybody's excited. You get. No.
Very sorry for being late.
You're right. You're right. You're not late. You're actually right on time. If you state your name and address for us.
Eddie Adkins and 1014 West First Street,
All right.
so right next door.
Okay.
So we,
Hold on just one second. We'll have Brooke go over the application, and then we'll have you add to it. All right? Brooke?
All right, so this structure is zoned local business. It was not included on the NHL survey that we currently have in place. Obviously, the request is to demolish the non-historic structure. And that is the picture of the building, and that is all I have.
Okay. Go ahead.
so we just want to tear it down.
Oh.
We've been able to get it. We, very fortunately, were able to purchase the property next door earlier
Oh,
this year. It's
okay.
beautiful.
Who'd you
And
buy
we-
that from?
Pardon?
Who'd you buy that from?
Well, we bought it from a very nice gentleman and his wife, who's even nicer, the Pittmans.
He's a much better person.
But our intent is to tear it down, and then we want to come back and we want to build something else. Our intent long-term is to build a garage that matches the house with an apartment above it, and just keep making First Street prettier and prettier. So, but I don't think there's anything historic about that building.
Before Eddie got there, this looked like a typical, it had a pointed roof, a regular shed roof on it, and it was a regular little garage. And I have to recuse myself because I influenced, I think, Eddie's opinion of this wonderful structure, so.
Well, and you likely all know who was in the building before, but Carl Hungmas was there.
Yeah.
And Carl, I offered, when we talked about it, it wasn't about money, it was about finding him another place, and I was able to find him a place up on Pleasant Ridge that's
Good.
almost 1,200 square feet, so he's in hog heaven.
He's in heaven.
Matter of fact, I talked to him on the way down, he's got lights up in it now.
Nice.
So, but our intent would just be to tear it down.
Okay.
So quite honestly, it's a little bit of an eyesore to the street. It's gonna make our house look better. I think First Street just look better altogether, so.
Well, for me, it's a non-historic structure, and we've had some of these come before, and I think it's, I don't really know, there's a lot to talk about when they're not historic, especially when they're like a shed or, an out, and, a separate structure from the house, that it doesn't require a lot of comment from me, so.
Mr. Atkins? There is a request, or that in the event you do get approved for this and you do tear it down, that you recycle anything you may come across that might be usable to someone else. And I noticed that the doors are Dutch doors,
Yes, ma'am.
and possibly you could recycle those to the Restore or something like
Right.
that.
We've
They're
had a
kind
couple
of
of people
interesting.
ask us about those doors. It's interesting that you said that, yeah.
Well, I'll give you $1,000 for the door and you can tear down the building.
Okay. Well, maybe what I should do is offer somebody the door if they'll tear down the rest of the building. So-
There you go.
And haul it off, yeah.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
so- But again, our long-term is we want to match the house that's next, that we're already in, and really fix up that corner, so.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments from the board? Any from the audience? All right, hearing none. Carol Ann, you want to take us through findings of fact?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, if I could read it. Okay, demolition may be appropriate if the building does not contribute to the historic character of the district. Let's see, application. Okay, the second one is what I kind of alluded to.
Yes, ma'am.
Material-wise,
Yeah,
though, not so much.
material-wise.
Yes, ma'am.
And may not have been, okay, that doesn't apply. Number 4, demolition by neglect. No, those don't apply. I think actually the first one says everything it needs to say as far as I'm concerned.
Does not contribute.
Yeah. That's it for me.
Okay. Tom?
I agree for the same reasons.
Sandy?
I agree for the same reasons.
Owen?
I agree for the same reasons.
Mike?
I recuse myself.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but make sure, yeah. And I agree for the same reasons. It's not a historic structure. It doesn't contribute. And certainly the materials, if you find historic materials or just reusable materials, Restore certainly does a great job in repurposing those to the community. So, all right, with that, we'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review
Good job.
grant a certificate of appropriateness to Mr. Carl Atkins at 1016 West First Street for the proposed demolition of a non-historic building.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Brooke?
Mike Pittman?
He's recused.
Oh, that's right, sorry. Carolyn Rogers?
Approved.
Sandy Palmer?
Approve.
Roland McCall?
Approve.
Thomas Stark?
Approve.
And Josh Wilbur.
Approved. So you'll get your COA in the mail, but you can begin
Thank you.
demolition as long as you get proper
Really
building
appreciate it.
permits.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Tell Carl I didn't vote to demolish his building. He'll be surprised.
All right, our next application is 1016 West Main Street.
Hello again, Brian Martin, 104 Sheeran Street. I'm here for Todd Calvert, who owns the property. Basically, he wants to remodel it to give his parents a place to live in Madison. So that being said, he wants to put a rear addition on just to add a little more living space on the backside. And then similar to two applications ago, front porch, just again, a little bit of protection as well as more of a sitting front porch for them. So drawing, show the rest of it.
Yeah, so, this is a circa 1880 gable front.
Sorry, I got
You got
I got
and I
carried
was just
away.
listening, and I didn't
Forgot.
stop you.
That's all right.
Sorry, Brooke. My apologies.
You're good. It's on residential medium density, R8. COA request, sorry, that is incorrect. But it is to add a porch onto the front of the structure, as well as a rear addition. So you can see, pictures of the front facade, the rear of the structure. This is an inspiration photo for a front porch idea. Site plan, or excuse me, a floor plan. Site plan. And then these are some drawings for the rear addition. And the front porch. And that is all I have.
Brian, what materials are you gonna use? Roofing, continue with shingles? and-
Continue with shingles. The rear addition would be an LP, smart side,
Okay.
our common material that holds up well and mimics, to some degree, some original fabric.
The porch on the front LP siding is,
It-
because it looked like it was pretty robust, so.
The front porch structure, it would be a composite wood to be similar to, it has a little side porch on it
Yeah,
now.
I saw
So it's
that.
technically, it's, again, not to try to, replicate that exactly, but it kind of only makes sense to carry that, and putting that front porch on it to carry that around. And that's where the inspiration photo is, it's the L-shaped porch concept, is
Right.
that it's just a, continuation of that.
So you're not closing that current?
No, it's
Okay.
it's gonna be maintained, yeah.
And the roofing for the front porch?
Same as the house, just a shingle, yeah. It has the hip roof style, so and it's, again, it kind of has to fall into place with the existing pitch of that house, so you see a little more of it than maybe we'd like, but I think it's staying consistent with the slope of the roof.
Can we go back to that inspirational photo? That is like craftsman style.
It's just more just the concept of the L shape to it.
Oh,
It's not-
just the
it's not
shape of it,
columns
not
and
the
brickwork
style
and
of it,
stuff. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's just more configuration.
Okay.
So, like I said, the side porch that's on there now has that, that scroll work and the columns and such, the wood columns. We would want to try to be consistent with that, because we don't want to remove that's in place now.
Right, sure.
Can you
Okay.
go back to
Extend
that
it out.
picture of that, the front porch?
There. So that's what you'd be taking around.
Yeah.
Is that right there, that look?
So you'd be replicating that, the molding around the porch?
Yes, yes. On the drawing, you can see it show up across the front there. And again, I know the idea is not exactly to try to make it, make it look original in that regard, but again, because we don't want to remove the,
Right.
the
I mean,
material on the
you're
side,
limited
it's
with what's
just,
already
it's
there.
being kind of consistent with what's there, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little Victorian house just to the left of that. I think it's 1018.
Mhm.
It's almost exactly the
Yeah,
same house.
yeah,
and they
similar
must have
structure.
built probably the same time.
Yeah.
This traditionally had the side porch. It never had the front. I'm just on porches today, aren't I? It didn't have a front porch. But I do love that the fretwork that's on the side porch, and that you would replicate it if you went with the front porch, or if you're approved for that. but, the one on the left of you, I noticed that they had taken all the fretwork off, and they've got like 4x4s holding up the porch or something like that. And I know you would do a much better job of that.
Yeah, we'd be consistent as much as we could, yeah.
But I thought because of the proximity of the one at 1018, that the two of them would look better if they were the same design, which they originally were. That one I'm sure had fretwork, and somewhere along the line it went away.
Sure.
Thankfully, you all preserved that one.
Sure.
But that's the problem I have with that, because it would not have been original.
Any other questions? Whoops, comments?
Just similar commentary from the last time. I definitely understand the concept of adding that porch, but again, it's more of a, specific to a lifestyle, and it's an addition that's, and actually what's kind of fun about this house is that if you go to the photo, we learn from architecture and construction and structure that steel is supposed to hold up masonry, and the brickwork on that gable, go one more back. The brickwork comes down onto a wood column, which is just kind of interesting. And that was original. We're certainly not changing that by any means, but it's just, so the concept is we're still, that detail will still be in place. We're just simply applying, we want to apply that roof structure there for comfort for them to be able to get a little more shade, south facing, and, place to sit and watch the traffic fly by.
Yeah.
But is that a little attic vent at the top?
Yes.
And you'll
Yeah, that would be,
retain that?
yeah, because we're doing the hip roof, so it's not going all the way up in the gable. It'll be below that.
Okay, good.
I'll go back to the picture of the.
Yeah, I didn't draw it in there, should have, but yeah, it'll be above it.
But the entrance to the building would still be on the side.
Yes, yeah.
Isn't that kind of scary, having that one wooden column holding up that whole, maybe you want to get a steel beam that you could then cover in wood?
Well, that, you see wood headers installed within internally in brickwork, which is interesting. Again,
Yeah.
Technically, steel is supposed to hold masonry, not wood, but it works. It just, it's unique for sure.
Want to keep that one painted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Any other questions, comments? Any questions, comments from the audience? All right, hearing none. Tom, you want to take us through findings of fact?
Sure.
Thank you.
According to the guidelines for new construction on the residential guidelines, page 68, the best approach to site additions would be that are visible from the street, would be in the rear of the building, and I think the addition that you are adding is going to be on the back side of that property. Additions to historic homes should be located at the rear of the building. We've already covered that. They should be secondary, smaller and simpler. I believe that is the case. Additions should be compatible in design in keeping with the original building's design, roof shape, materials, color, and location of the window, door, and cornice heights. I believe that we confirmed that you are in compliance with that. Additions should not imitate earlier historic style or architecture. You're not doing that. The recommended approach is for additions to reflect characteristics of the current period in design. Well, basically, you're just carrying the design around to the front, so you're staying and being compatible with the original building. And I don't believe you are removing extensive historic material from the house either, so I think we're good on that point. I feel that you're in conformance with the guidelines. The porch, as we discussed, while it's not, really covered in our guidelines, the plan that you have submitted, I believe, does tie in with the rest of the existing houses on both sides, and also you're using similar materials on the front of the house that are already on the side. So I believe that that's in conformance as well.
Sandy?
agree for the same reasons that he stated.
Owen?
I agree for the same reasons.
Mike?
I agree for the same reason.
Carol Ann?
I agree.
And I too agree for the same reasons. So accept a motion.
Based on the preceding findings of fact, I move that the Madison Historic District Board of Review grant a certificate of appropriateness to Todd Calvert for the proposed application at 1016 West Main Street, adhering to the proposed materials and addition sizing as listed in the application.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Brooke?
Josh Wilbur,
Approve?
Thomas Stark,
Approve.
Owen McCall,
Approve.
Sandy Palmer,
Approve.
Carol M. Rogers,
Approve.
and Mike Pittman.
Approve.
All right. Brian, you can let Mr. Calvert know. He'll get a COA in the mail. And as you know, follow the building permit and you
Sir.
can keep going. All right.
Thank you.
sir.
Appreciate it.
Okay, with that, we go to new business. Is there any, whoops. Oh, that's right. We didn't go back to that one. So 214 East 3rd Street. Did we have an applicant? Guess not. So
Incomplete, and we'll do it at the next.
the next one, yep, okay. All right, now we go to new business. Thank you. Any new business? All right, hearing none, then we'll go to old business. I do know with old business, we do have guidelines that the board can comment on the draft guidelines at this point. And so I'll just,
I was just gonna say that, if, based on your recommendation, give comments, and we would like to compile those and then have the subcommittee review those, prior to submission, to Thomason and Associates,
okay, that's fine.
if we can do that.
Yeah. So, I think how we'll do these comments, if you guys would like, I'll just call on you, and if you got comments that you'd like to make on the guidelines, you can do so, and then, we'll get them on record, of course, with the board, just like the public. You can continue to make comments. This does not, in the ability to make comments. You can still submit comments to, Brooke or Nicole at the city of Madison, so. So, Tom, we'll start with you. Do you have any comments that you'd like to make at this point?
I don't have any additional comments, based on my last review of what's already online. I would, and I really haven't had time to look at this document that was given to us
Right.
tonight, so I really can't make comment on that right now.
Okay.
But if I do, I'll submit it to you, Brooke.
Okay. Sandy?
I too, I have not read these that we just got tonight, but before that, I read the guidelines. I have no additional questions or issues with them.
Owen?
Okay, I've already submitted my suggestions a while ago. I don't have anything new, and so I have nothing to add. Thanks.
Okay. Mike?
The only thing, Phil, that I saw that, I keep hitting on it too, I think every time I see it, is that when something says in the guidelines it's not approvable, well, there's always a situation, there's always an exception to every rule, and I think for us as a board, to say something's not approvable, that shouldn't be in the guidelines. It should be that it's less favorable, you know the wording, I don't need to tell you, but yeah, I think for us as a board, we want to be able to have the capability to make those decisions where we need to. And I think once it goes to city council and they approve it, if I'm not mistaken, it becomes an ordinance. So I think from our standpoint, we would like to have that capability. If we get a unique situation where we have to make an exception, we can do it. Thank you, sir.
Carol Ann?
I had an opportunity to peruse this pretty quickly, but I am really impressed that, with the minutia of it, that they're not called windows, they're called this, they're not called shutters, they're called this. And I just think those little bitty improvements can only help, and in just the building of certain buildings is in town, it makes a difference whether it was 1823 or 1825. So I'm glad that they're going for the historical accuracy of it.
And I haven't, read through these. I'd like to read through those, but, I agree with Mike on the not approvable, but, we could get into materials too, and saying vinyl and vinyl clad windows do not accurately resemble historic windows. I think that's a hard statement to make. I don't know that I think they could resemble historic windows. They may not be the material that a historic society or so forth might like to utilize. But, we're looking at materials all the time, and there's new materials that come out all the time. LP siding wasn't, out for a long time, and all of a sudden it comes out, and the historic board's going, okay, well, we kind of, we can see how this resembles, older wood, as long as it's smooth, things like that. So I don't want to put ourselves in a position, as Mike kind of said, I hate doing this whole material thing. I think it should be up to the board to decide, what that might be, because vinyl, just like LP, I've seen some new stuff. We had one out here not too long ago. There was a vinyl clad wood window, and that vinyl clad wood window actually looked really good. It looked appropriate. It's something that, I'm thinking, man, I could see something like that on homes going forward too. So that's something I would like for you to look at, because it does paint us in a corner when we do say that these things are not appropriate or they're not approvable, and then we approve it. Well, then we've basically just, you might as well throw the guidelines out the door, because they're not worth anything now, because you're approving it, something you're saying is not approvable or whatever. So, but that's my first comment right now, and I've got others I've got to submit because I was on vacation last week, so I haven't had a chance to do that yet. All right. So, yeah, so any public comments, any further public comments on guidelines? Come on, Ken. Yeah. Look at him. All right. Well, come on. No, you come on up to the podium there, Link, if you would.
Link Ludington, 601 Mulberry Street. I guess I've heard reference to comments that have already been made. But where are those? Or have those been?
So the comments that you had sent me this morning are the ones that I distributed to the board and to Mr. Thomason. The comments that have been made previously have been compiled, and are, that's why I had asked Josh if we could schedule a subcommittee meeting to review all of the comments as an amalgamation. All of them to date, except for the ones we're hearing today, have gone to the board and to Mr. Thomason.
Okay, but I mean, at this point, they haven't been made public.
Well, they've been in public meeting, so Nicole nor I have distributed written copy, but they've been all stated in public meeting for the most part. Yes.
So we took public comments in our last meeting that were live in our last meeting. And then any public comments that have been sent to the city via email or whatever like that, that's what they've been compiling on the side. So
Okay, but I mean,
those have not been made public yet, but I'm sure that you could provide him a copy of any of those, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, upon
what
request.
was you mentioned a document that you
We,
received today.
from comments, because we get the comments so that we can see what the public is commenting on and what they're asking for, so that we can review those as we're looking at the guidelines.
Okay, but so you're just saying that that's the same thing I submitted previously? But
These are including some of your comments, yeah.
This is the updated email that you sent me. I received it
Today?
last night or this morning. I believe it's this morning.
Yeah, okay, well, then that's what you already have. It's just that I realized I had left out one
Okay.
word.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, with regard to, there was a mention of some ironwork that supposedly was from
Okay.
Madison Foundry, which I reworded that and realized I left out the word not.
Oh.
Because those two examples are not known to be Madison Foundry.
I think she may have caught it, because it are not attributed to
Yeah.
Madison Foundry, that's why, okay.
I mean, I submitted, I attached a new version of all those comments, correcting
Okay.
that one mistake.
Okay, well then we got the
That
corrected
is
one
the
then.
new version.
Yeah,
Okay.
but then there were two other just typographical errors that
Okay.
Yeah, but I had not received any response or reply from anyone, including Mr. Thomason, about any of those comments, so.
Yeah, we haven't been replying to anything at this point.
Okay.
We have just been accepting all the comments. We just want to get in all the comments, and then, of course, the idea is then have a subcommittee really then sit down and go through everything. And
Okay, so at some point, all comments that have been made, whether it's been made in the content, spoken comments in a public meeting, or comments submitted in writing to the office, will be all put together, and then, so then how do, well, I guess what you're saying.
once the subcommittee meets, then, of course, public can attend and listen to
Yeah,
that
okay.
subcommittee, yeah,
So ultimately, the subcommittee will go through each item one by one
to discuss it.
and either accept or reject.
Well, not necessarily do they get the chance to do that. They could make the recommendation to accept or reject, but eventually the board itself has to vote on whether or not to accept or reject anything.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, but I mean.
So the subcommittee will come and say, hey, this is what we would like to do, we think we should do, and then this board will have to decide in totality
Yeah,
what
okay.
they're gonna do,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I realize that there are certain issues that for whatever reason, it may be determined it's not relevant, or you don't want to include it, or whatever, but anything that does wind up being in the guidelines, my primary concern is that it all just be as accurate as possible. Because even the guidelines that were adopted, what was it, 2000?
You talk about
Yeah,
you talk about
existing
the
guidelines.
original ones
The
like in
first
the eighties?
guidelines, Yeah.
Yeah,
There were issues and errors that were, we thought we corrected everything, and then for whatever reason, a lot of things fell through the cracks.
yeah.
And it's just this, I mean, I realize if anytime you do a printed document, there's always going to be something wrong.
Be something, yeah.
But it's just at this time, I'd just like to make sure that before it winds up getting in print and becomes the gospel, that all the glitches are addressed. Because unfortunately, once it gets in print, that makes it true even if
Yeah.
it's false.
Yeah, that's a
So
good point. It's a really good point.
Okay, so, but I heard mentioned earlier about wanting to accomplish this within the next couple of months, so you're.
Well, I mean, there's a time they would like to. I mean, but at the end of the day, though, we want this to be right. So, I personally, and the board may hate me for it, but I'm not going to let it get rushed if we're not comfortable. This
Yeah.
board needs to be very comfortable with what we're going to go with, and we're not going to, be rushed to get it done just to meet a certain timeline. We'll try to get this done. The idea is to hopefully have this done this year. The ordinance is being worked on at the same time. So, I've talked with the mayor, and I've expressed my opinion of wanting to get that ordinance done too, so that the guidelines should reflect a lot from the ordinance. I mean, there are things in there about demolitions and things that the ordinance does have the prevailing word on that the guidelines would have to follow. So, there are things there that I want to make sure absolutely happen, and we're, step in step. And he agrees. He thinks that's the right thing to do too. So he's got to get the ordinance moving a little faster if we're going to meet the whole guideline thing too. So there's a couple things there that I think are important, but I do agree with you. Once it's written, then all of a sudden you're opening it up, and that's what you're going to go by, right? I mean, future boards are going to follow that, and we may not be here to see that.
Yeah,
So-
and also, I guess I'd like to say, I mean, I know there had been some disparaging comments about the proposed, updated guidelines, but I would say aside from, technical errors or somewhat misleading information, or having buildings mixed up or misidentified or whatever, I think that the new guidelines are a great step forward. And I think it will be much easier for people to understand and much less unwieldy compared to having two separate documents that deal with so many of the same issues.
Yeah, the residential, the commercial.
So I mean, I'm glad this is being done. I still think it's being done backwards, because you should have started at the top with the ordinance and corrected all those problems and then followed with the others.
So you understand then why I said that.
But here, I guess better happening this way than not happening at all, so,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Great comments. Any other comments from the audience? All right. So we'll move, do we have any other old business? I don't know of any.
The only other thing to, I guess, discuss or update on is, as we've been talking about 123 Mill Street, the Lanthier Winery project,
yes.
just give an update.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
I'm like ready for this one. I want to hear this update. I've heard it. She's choked up, so it's got to be good. It's,
Yeah.
Be ready here.
Sorry about that. So, the current building inspector, he could not be here this evening, but, the new building inspector is Landon Ralston. If you get a chance, any of you, please come by and meet him. He will try to attend a meeting in the future to say hello.
Good.
Anyway, he was told that, some more activities were going to be occurring on the lot, regarding more, storage containers. So, I've got some new information. I'm going to work with him tomorrow, to see about a plan of action, because I do think that there is a valid course of action that he can take as the building inspector if he so
Okay.
chooses. So I am gonna provide some recommendations on that.
I'm assuming to stop this
Yes,
from occurring. Okay.
correct.
And to get those that are there removed.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to ask him for, given
Okay.
new information.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, I think at the last meeting, somebody mentioned that the alleyway, is that an open alley still there? I mean, you would not know that from driving it, but is it supposed to be?
Correct, yes, it is a public alley, and the determination on that was made that that is a police department issue.
Yeah.
There has been, some concern from different community members about the blockage of that alley, or partial blockage, I should say. The police department was contacted, and the materials that were causing the partial blockage have mostly been removed. I drove through the alley myself earlier, and I was glad I have a Jeep in one area, but otherwise, you can't, it is accessible as an alley currently, but that is a police matter.
Any update on the retaining walls?
No, so the letter the board requested, to be sent out from, Devin is in draft format, waiting on approval to be sent. As soon as he receives that approval, that letter will be sent.
And the reason for that delay, we kind of thought probably the letter would go out by now, but Devin had to also talk with the mayor.
Yeah.
So he discussed that. You were copied on that. So I just, but for the rest of the board, he talks with the mayor to make sure that's, what the mayor also wants to do, or if there's any questions, comments from him before he does take that action, so. All right, well, let's go to staff report.
All right, so, July fast track applications, we had Wayne and Elsie Detmer at 104 East Third Street, replacing an existing modern standing seam metal roof with an asphalt shingle roof to more closely align with the historic 1886 roof material, and we used evidence from the Sanborn map of that same year to do so. Heights Sign Company received approval at 209 West Main Street to install one hanging sign made of polymetal with vinyl graphics and one vinyl window decal of the business logo. Lynn and Michelle Pennington at 227 West Main to install a 4 foot by 4 foot wooden hanging sign at right angle to the building and one vinyl window sign that's going to be 38 inches by 23 inches. Catherine Burris at 410 West 2nd Street to replace the existing rear wood privacy fence with a new 6 foot tall privacy fence in the same location. The reason why this one was not considered repair replace is because the design of the fence changed. So I just wanted to clarify that. Sandra Bailey at 736 West 3rd Street received approval to install wooden louvered shutters on the windows. She is using the appropriate hinged historic style, so they're not going to be the permanently fixed shutters. So I do want to clarify that. And then in looking at the July 2021 COA review, John Schuring had, at 621 Presbyterian Avenue, had an approval to remove the existing deck on the north side of the home and rebuild with a new deck, increasing the size to 10 by 14 with a gabled roof and screen interior. That has been completed. Mark Viterna at 716 West 3rd Street to build a single-car garage at the rear of the home, to be 14 foot by 34 foot with hardy board siding, 7-inch reveal to match the home, a 412 pitch roof with shingle, 13-foot high walls, 9-foot overhead garage door, 14 by 16-foot driveway, and white vinyl gutters to match the home. That is in progress. I have spoken to Mr. Vaterna. Some of the detailing may change. So we're not sure if this project may come back before the board if it's not a staff approvable item. But anything that's going to change that he talked about was very minor changes, like perhaps the roof pitch or something like that. So obviously a roof pitch would have to come back before the board, but just to kind of give an update on that project. And then the last one was Steve Buchanan at 71315 West Main Street to raise the existing walls to accommodate a 312 pitch and add 4 egress windows to code. That has been done. And that is all I have.
Any questions for Brooke? All right. Hearing none, I think we are at the point to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All right, good. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Good deal. Thank you, guys. I don't want to adjourn. She's opposing.
Hey, she made a motion, she defined the fact, come on, man.
Oh, Lordy.
Can I speak with you in a moment?
Absolutely.
After I get done?
Well, thank you.
Tina's my chair.
You got your bulletproof
Don't tell Carl, though, I really.
You got your bulletproof vest on?
Oh, I bet he is. I bet he is. 'Cause he's